Well, we're going to be enlightened today and encouraged much by the UK representative of the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan, our student minister here, student minister Hilary Muhammad, and I'd like you to welcome him warmly with a thunderous round of applause as he comes to address us with this lecture today. You're going to leave so high, brothers and sisters, so high.
We thank him for coming among us and bringing the truth and bringing guidance, bringing knowledge and wisdom that would once again cause us to be a great people once again. And he came to us in the person of a man, one Master Hilary Muhammad, who traveled to North America from the holy city Mecca and was looking for a very particular man who would have the shoulders, the spirit, the character necessary to take on the most difficult job that could be given to any man or woman that would be on the planet at that time, which is to go amongst a people who are considered mentally, morally, spiritually, and in all otherwise dead. So we can never thank Allah God enough for the man of the hour, the most important man there is on God's earth, the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan. It gives me pleasure to greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum. So the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan was taught by his teacher, the most Honourable Elijah Muhammad, that we cannot fathom the depths of Satan. Right. This is why it's even pointless. It becomes a pointless exercise. Right. Actually trying to understand why the wicked do what they do. Right. What we must try to fathom is the fact that God has come in person and he is intervening in our affairs to save us from wherever Satan is planning, to whatever depths he is planning it from. Are you hearing me? So when we look at this very critical subject of our youth, the greatest generation we have ever produced, we don't want anybody to think that we are presenting that subject from a perspective that our youth are disconnected from their parents and from our ancestors. Because when we say the greatest generation we have ever produced, that is in a very strong context. Are you hearing what I'm saying to you? Because every generation we have produced, particularly since our sojourn in slavery, has had a particular work to do. Man, you never call a servant of God a wealthy man. Because a man of God is always so attractive that people just give him wealth. If the servant of God needs a car, someone will give the servant a car. If the servant of God needs a house, someone will give him a mansion. If the servant of God needs clothing, someone will buy him clothing. If the servant of God needs shoes, someone will buy him a shoe shop. And our people hear that the Honourable Louis Farrakhan is in need of anything material, they will rush and get in line to buy it for that man. Why? Because the righteousness in him demands from us that we facilitate the needs of a man who has sacrificed his entire life for us. And this is why the book says, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all riches will be what? Added to you. In our ears, the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us are the most important parts of our physiology, because it's through the ear, the mind, the heart, the body is directed. So we have to be then careful where we place our ears, right? Now, if you look at the amount of filth and poison that comes into our ears on a daily basis, it's no surprise why we are in the condition that we are in. Listen carefully or reflect on most of that which comes into our ear by way of sound. Listen to the type of music we are exposed to on a daily basis. Listen to the type of conversation we are exposed to on a daily basis. And many of us who are not learned to a very basic degree can actually be in the company of very ignorant people for hours. See, when your mind is attuned to the Word of God, You can't stay in the company of those who speak foolishness for more than approximately 5 minutes. Because when you realize someone's conversation is going nowhere, you know you are doing yourself a disservice by lending your ear to nonsense.
Brother Hilary, the only time I gained true confidence that the black man is still on his feet is when you invite me here. I want you to give a special applause for the Nation of Islam. In my life, I always say this: I'm not worried about criticism. I forget about negativity. I just drive on one bus, the positive bus. And I find the Nation of Islam a positive bus. I want you in Croydon. I want you all over the place. Who like you, who don't like you, that's their business. Stay on the positive bus. Yeah? Brother Hilary, listen to me, young people. Listen good. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth its fruit in its season. Its leaf shall not wither, and whatsoever you do shall prosper.
Well, the importance of unihood, it came to birth because of the senseless post-Cold Wars in our community. And based upon the senseless post-Cold Wars in our community, we wanted to bring about a group of young people who would be willing to go amongst their peers and teach their peers the value of being black and the value of black life and the value of life in general. And as a result of them being able to go and teach their peers the value of life, the value of being black and the sacredness thereof, then they are reducing the black on black senseless crime in our community. So the idea is to eradicate our community of senseless violence, particularly amongst our young people, and to create an environment wherein our young people can travel wherever they like in London and be greeted by their youth family, by their young brothers and sisters, as opposed to opposed and harmed in some instances. Well, miseducation, first and foremost, negative portrayal of us as black people. Every day we can turn on the television, turn on the radio, and black people are being negatively represented and negatively portrayed. So it's a system that has been in place ever since we were taken into captivity, and now it's just reinforced through radio, television, and newspapers, and sometimes even by our own people, unfortunately. So we know that the slave masters' children and our former slave masters, they now, through their children, are engaged in activity that is re-inculcating a slave mentality in our youth, wherein our young people have very few positive black role models to look up to, and those who are doing great work throughout the world, primarily the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan, they're banned from the hearts and the minds of our
country. In 1555, one named Sir John Hawkins, or just John Hawkins at the time, he brought forth a plan to Queen Elizabeth I of taking ships to Africa and kidnapping black people and dumping them in the Caribbean for them to work for free and enriching the empire. She responded, and history documents that Queen Elizabeth I responded to John Hawkins that if we was to do this, we will bring down the wrath of God on this nation. Queen Elizabeth I, she knew what the consequence was for doing such, but she went home and she looked over the figures, and the very next day she summons him and put at his disposal all of the ships and the resources that he needed to travel, to sail from England to go to Africa and kidnap black people and make us into burden bearers of their wicked evil plans. May Allah bless us, brothers and sisters, with strength and commitment, and to put down the dumb stuff little cheap thrills. Are you hearing me? We gotta get beyond little cheap thrills, and the mighty soldiers, we gotta rise up and gain our community and wake up our little young brothers who the enemies put tags on most of their foot anyway. Our poor little sisters, beautiful and looking for a man to share their life with. All they can find is a little brother who's on bail somewhere with a tag on his foot. Is that the future? And if that's not the future, then we've got to rise up and acquaint our young brothers with their mission and force Satan to take the damn tracking device off their foot.
We're just trying to go throughout the various communities, brother, wherever we are as black people. We got a lot of differences among us as black people. Some created by us and some created by others. And it would be nice if your children, my sons can walk anywhere they want and be welcomed by black men, as opposed to being checked and ending up dead like the little brother in Lewisham. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, little brother was on the bus, he was 14. And he got stabbed dead 14. You know? So we have to do what we can to try and make sure that whatever differences they are, you know, as elders, we go and try and do our best to try and... Yeah, well, we have to try. Because we're the only ones, if we don't do it, then no one ain't gonna do it. As black people, if we don't do it, we can't expect white people to do for us what they're doing for their own children. But we just want to let you know why we're here. So when you see we want to try to prepare a way that when you have sons, when you have daughters, they can walk anywhere they want to go in England. And the greatest threat to them won't be another black man, but the greatest threat to them would be what happened to young Stephen Lawrence. Where Stephen Lawrence was at a bus stop today, he probably wouldn't mind a group of white boys coming and approaching him. He'll probably be more afraid of some of us walking on the same street as him. And that kind of mentality, we want to reverse it and do the best we can, right? Well, Allah really has blessed us this evening with a great meeting and greet of our brothers and sisters. Peckham is a place where I went to school, and it's a wonderful thing to come back and see so many young brothers engaged in activity where they can work off whatever frustration they're carrying that the society, you know, imposes upon them. So this centre, Damiloli Taylor Centre, is a great place for young black people, and we commend it to the highest those who are running the facility and giving up their time and their expertise. We were very inspired tonight to be here, and we thank Allah for inspiring us and guiding us to come to Peckham tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Your ancestors, if you trace back your bloodline, there are members of your family whose blood you carry today who were subjected to tremendous torture. Yes? They were born to endure that. They would have wished that they were living in the time of not just a revolutionary who would preach some words and fire up some people, but they would have wished that they would be living in the time that the one that God would raise himself would come and speak powerful words to the children of those persecutors to warn them that their time had come to an end. They would have wished to have been in our seats where we could receive the deliverer. Are you hearing me? The question is, would you want to trade places with your ancestors who were born on plantations and were brutalized from morning to night? You wouldn't want their role, right? And if you don't want their role, but remember, they fulfilled their role perfectly. They lived, were brutalized, and died. They didn't escape. So that you and I could live to be present when the deliverer would come and usher forth judgment that would destroy the wicked forever and a day. Now, if we're living in the time of the deliverer, do you and I really want to be caught sitting down? Do you and I contemplating whether this is the right one or not. You see, the words that are being spoken by the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan is resonating in the hearts and the minds of teenagers who have been expelled from school. When they hear his voice, they know that's no ordinary black man. They know that if I had a teacher like him in school, I would never have been expelled. I would have excelled because he speaks to my nature.
We've read about what he has done in the East, but we have been suffering in the West. And we have been suffering to the degree that no people in the annals of history have ever suffered. The torture and the torment that we have endured through the transatlantic slave trade, you cannot find historically any people who have suffered that. There are those who have tried to rob our identity. Do you understand? And gone to the pages of history and claimed the sufferation. But they cannot find, or we cannot find their sufferation on any land on this planet. That's right. Do you understand? There are no people who have suffered what we have suffered in that land called Egypt. It didn't happen over there. Egypt was a name that was given as a sign of what we would suffer right here in the Western Hemisphere. Are you hearing me? The name England, America, Europe had not come into being when those scriptures were being written. So the name Egypt was given. The name Prime Minister and President was not known. So the name Pharaoh was given to tell us that a leader and leadership and parliaments and governments would be at the root of our suffering. So we know that we are the ones that have fulfilled that which God caused Abraham to see thousands of years in advance. That know of a surety, Abraham, that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs. And they shall serve the stranger, be afflicted by the stranger for 400 years. Then, not before, then, importance of time, I will come, God Almighty himself. Not a prophet, not an angel, not a messenger, but the sender of prophets, angels, and messengers. The big man said, he is coming, and he will judge that nation whom they shall serve. And he will cause us to come out of such nation with great substance and be returned to our fathers and be buried at a ripe old age. We know Allah God came in the person of Master Hilary Muhammad, 1930, declared us as black people July the 4th, independent of our former slave masters and their children, and raised up a messenger Messiah, another one. We've had a few messiahs, right? We've had plenty of messengers. But this one was raised up to commemorate the end of the 400-year period that we would serve Satan. And the most honorable Elijah Muhammad was raised up and given a wisdom, the like of which it was time for it to be manifest. Not just for people to recite the word, but to actually build a nation within a nation. Are you hearing me? Because it's not time to go home until we first show Satan in his home that we are God's people. That has to be achieved. Because Satan needs to know we ain't running nowhere.
Brothers and sisters, just to cap off what brother's saying, we all know that the reason why we're here today is because we made it clear that the Honorable Louis Farrakhan would be speaking via live stream. And it has caused this government through the council to be extremely concerned with a message from God's representative to his people here in the United Kingdom. So therefore they are desirous of derailing the Honorable Louis Farrakhan from speaking, hence the reason why we are here. But we are letting the council know, and all the way to the government, that the Honorable Louis Farrakhan will speak here live in the United Kingdom, and there's nothing they're going to be able to do to stop that. They desire to not just divide us, but they desire for us to accept that we can't choose who we want to address us on a so-called day of independence. There is no independence if we can't determine who's going to address us. And if we accept anything less than the ones who we have decided and chosen to speak to us speaking, then we have failed today. So we'll await the license, and we want that license to show very clearly that our honorable guest will be speaking August the 5th at 5 p.m. in Kennington Park. Make no mistake about it. It's not by any means necessary that if we don't get that we're still having a march, then that's fine. But by way of where we are concerned, we need everything or nothing, because it's the minister's right to speak on August the 5th, and it's our right to hear him if we so desire. Thank you.
Too many of us fake love and are false people. I met some false people in my day, boy, who act as if me and them is good, but are holding malice from something that happened God knows how many years ago. Black people love all the malice, you see. Oh my God, we love a malice. You think you're talking to someone who you got past something with, and they're there in their heart is just full of whatnot. And you know what makes me know that some of us just love to hold a malice? Is because when you're with people and you're a straight kind of brother or a straight kind of sister, someone offend you, you tell them. Something's outstanding, you raise it. The people who don't like that, they're the malice holders. When people don't like straight talk, it's because they're hypocrites. That's why. And they're namming your flesh whenever you disappear. But those who like straight talk, they're straight people. You ain't hearing me. I don't care whether it go to big dirty bad word, no matter, as long as you get it out. Yeah, man, say, and we can level off this thing here. Because we're not into speaky, spokey language, but when the back is turned, there's every clerk being cussed.
Come on.
I prefer to hear the clerk in front of me. You know how you me I say. Me not deal with no idiot business, you know. A little boy and little girl business. Where people are faking love. And that's why the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has taught us that love, the root of it is not false. The root of love is agreement. Because who you can't agree with, you can't love. How are you going to love somebody who brings out the worst in you all the time and who you can't agree with nothing about? You can't love that. So how are you going to bring about love with black people and with love for arguing? Where's that? We love a disagreement. We love a contention. How are you going to bring about love? See, the master, when he came among us, he gave us laws, rules, regulations, policies, procedures, and put us in a military structure. It's like a girdle where he forced us to have to take instructions and guidance from people who we might not even like the sound of their voice. But that's the big man in the ranks. So whether you like him or not, you better submit or you're out of here. For some love. Like, get this done. Yes, sir. In your eye, like, you see you? But it's a military structure. You better do that properly. And even if you don't salute right, the man who you don't like will tell you, fix up your salute.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And what is that doing?
You know, purging the hypocrisy out of our heart when you've got to listen and obey the instructions of someone who your heart just wants to rip their head off. You're being purged. You're being purged. You're being purged. And when you stay in the purging process, you will see natural love take the place of acrimony. Do you understand? And rancor. You're not hearing me. And this is why when you come out of the process, you start being a nigga all over again. You understand? You start being a nigga again. You can't be a nigga and stay amongst God's servants. You have to stay in the class, meaning in the orientation of mind, that you're constantly being purged and being made new. Because when the unguarded nigga comes up out of us, then that destroys communities. That destroys brotherhood, it destroys sisterhood. So a military structure is so important. Today we received a declaration from the Honorable Judge Lord Justice Garnham pertaining to the fact that Lambeth Council and the Metropolitan Police have admitted to acting improperly in regards to the breaching of the human rights of the members of the Nation of Islam and others by prohibiting us from hearing a historic live message from the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and also prohibiting myself as a British citizen and other members of the Nation of Islam and other speakers, August the 5th, 2017. Lambeth Council's egregious policy was enforced by the Metropolitan Police, who was of the mind that it was acceptable to try to determine who we as black people of African descent should listen to. We hope that the outcome of this case sends a strong message to Lambeth and others. You will never again be able to tell us, the black community, who we can or cannot listen to without being fought ferociously. We will fight you 24 hours or 23 hours, 56 minutes and 46 seconds of every day, 7 days a week. We will fight you if you try to impose upon us your restrictions and control what goes into our ears. We will not accept that. The question that must be raised is, why did it take almost 4 years to settle this case, costing the taxpayers over £1 million? Even though we are willing, or were willing to sit at the table with Lambeth Council before embarking upon this litigation, they refused to sit with us, which forced us to have to take legal action. It is clear both parties, August the 5th, 2017, sought to divide the black community. We join ranks with other members of our community to bring forth healing amongst ourselves. Not to beg the government or Lambeth for anything, but to self-repair by first putting our differences aside and working together to give an example to our brothers and sisters throughout this country and throughout the world. We, the claimants, are encouraged and accept the invitation offered by Lambeth Council to meet with them to discuss how we can work together positively for the benefit of our community. We are optimistic that Lambeth Council will permit us the use of Kennington Park this year so that we may celebrate Ada 2021, so that we may hear a live broadcast from the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan, so that these historic wrongs can be righted. Freedom, justice and equality must be the premise on which our future relations with Lambeth and others are based upon. Thank you, and God be the glory. To God be the glory. Thank you.